Right, okay, good morning everybody and welcome to this Intelligence webinar. My name is Rupert Ogilvie and today we are going to be discussing delivering customer-focused digital services. So before I hand over to my colleague Kyle, who will be enlightening us over the next 40 minutes or so, just a few points of order. Like most webinars, you've probably noticed you've all been muted. So any and all questions, please enter them into the chat window, and then at the end of the webinar, we will try and cover off as many of them as we can. Any questions we don't have time to respond to, we will of course follow up with you all later. The session's also being recorded, so if any of you want to send a link on to any of your colleagues who couldn't potentially make it, that will be provided later on as well. Okay, so without further ado, I will hand over to Kyle to begin. Kyle.
Thank you, Rupert. Good morning, all. Just some brief introductions before we get started. You've just heard the dulcet tones of my colleague, Rupert Ogilvie, who is Integence's APM Practice Director. There's a bit of information under his picture there for you to read. Myself, I'm Head of Operations. I've been in the IT industry since about 91 and across a variety of disciplines, but always focusing in on infrastructure and infrastructure performance. We'll go through a number of topics today, but to get started, I'll give you a background about who Intelligence are, what we do, and followed by a few definitions around today's webinar about digital, the factors involved in the digital shift, how we go about monitoring that complexity, and then wrap it up with a use case, a real world example. Before we start the webinar, I'd like to tell you a little about Intelligence, who we are, what we do. Intelligence was founded in 2003 by our CEO, Peter Jobe, as a consultancy whose prime focus was around the problem of network performance and quality of service. The company is made up of experts in network, application infrastructure, cloud and customer performance, and specialise as a consultancy today in the spaces of cloud, hosting, networking content, APM, and experience. We love using innovative technology at Intelligence to drive simplification of complex IT problems, and hence our development of the Stratorium platform, providing the unprecedented insight for CIOs and IT leadership. But we'll get to that later on. Intelligence has 5 major service offerings. They are Intelligence Cloud Services, which provide businesses with the technical and commercial agility required in today's digital world. Intelligence Next Generation Infrastructure Services, which help our clients to seamlessly harness the full potential of next generation infrastructure technology to increase efficiency, reduce costs, improve quality, visualize their user experience, explore new opportunities, and accelerate their digital strategy and transformation in a controlled way. Intelligence are also leaders in application performance and end user experience analytics through our cognitive solutions. We integrate and embed our leading technology, processes, and infrastructure analytics to complement your DevOps innovation development and agile practices. Intelligence has developed in-depth knowledge of infrastructure management over the last 12 to 14 years and is able to offer services which enable IT leaders to regain control and visibility of their IT infrastructure. As mentioned, we provide this through our unique Stratorium platform, and we'll talk more about that at the end of the webinar. In addition, we provide managed sourcing, where Intelligence complement business existing IT teams with individual industry leaders and teams of experts to lead, manage, and facilitate the digital transformation process. And today's webinar will really cover off the first 3 of those service offerings. We'll be talking about cloud, next-gen infrastructure, and applications. If there's one reality that everybody's aware of, is that every year business is moving faster, new competitors appear overnight, and once safe markets are being tested by startups and challenger companies using leading edge technology to steal your business. A key component of this rapid change in business delivery is the rise of digital services to match the explosion of mobile and tablet adoption across an ever-evolving internet and mobile network. This creates new global pervasive markets and forces businesses to join the 24/7 by 365 world or pack up and go home. These ever-increasing digital devices are the ultimate interface to your customers. Portable, fast, and always on. The state change required to enter this modern world and get in front of your customers is referred to as digital transformation. So let's start off with the first clarification. What do we mean by digital services and transformation? And I quite like this quote by Alex from the CIO Advisory. The digital way of doing business encompasses an innovative use of modern technologies that continuously transforms the business to get competitive advantage and improve value realization. A successful customer-focused digital transformation will improve how your customers perceive your organization and will open the doors for new opportunities, business models, or even new industries. As mentioned before, there's an ever-increasing pressure to gain competitive advantage, and a key component of this is the explosion in technology and infrastructure. Even if you're not personally involved in a digital transformation project at the moment, chances are you know many people who are. Digital transformation has become as important a business technology shift as Y2K and PCI. And not unlike those events, if you don't pay attention to the state change, you may well perish. But just how big is this digital transformation initiative? Well, the International Data Corporation recently forecasted 1.2 trillion will be spent globally on technologies underpinning digital transformation initiatives. It may seem like a tremendous amount of money to invest in an initiative, but companies are banking on this investment in digital transformation to drive business efficiencies and accelerate innovation, which of course in return will increase revenues and market share. There's a few fundamental technologies underpinning this transformation, and we'll walk through them in a minute, but they are, of course, internet speed and capacity, mobile network and high-powered smartphones, microservice architectures, cloud, containers, and DevOps. Now let's quickly step through each of these briefly, just to kind of level set and give an overview of where we're coming from. The internet now provides a delivery mechanism that even high-frequency automated training companies that used to rely on private networks are now delivering high-speed services upon. According to a recent Akamai report, in the year June 2015 to June 2016, the internet speed grew by 23% to 6.3 megabits per second, with 8.5% of the nearly 4 billion internet users having an average speed of 25 megabits per second. This is faster than a lot of internal business LAN speeds still today. And this growth in capacity and speed continues year on year exponentially, as you can see by the graph produced by Ericsson. Of course, the mobile network is growing at even greater speeds. According to a recent Cisco report, global mobile network traffic grew 63% in 2016, and mobile cellular connection speeds more than tripled from an average of 2 megabits per second to 6.3 megabits per second in 2016. And although smartphones only represent 45% of total mobile devices and connections, they represent 81% of the total mobile traffic. With the decrease in price of internet and smartphones and the increase in functionality, it's not surprising to see that a lot of new regions are having significant growth in the mobile market. This truly makes your business a global entity. A paradigm shift in application modeling and service delivery, microservice architecture is a method of developing software applications as a suite of decoupled, independently deployable, small modular services in which each service runs a unique process and communicates through a well-defined, lightweight mechanism to serve a business goal. Thanks to its scalability, this architectural method is considered particularly ideal when you have to enable support for a range of platforms and devices, spanning web, mobile, Internet of Things, and wearables, or simply when you're not sure what kind of devices you'll need to support in an increasingly cloud-based future. A leading application performance monitoring provider recently announced that across the range of their clients utilizing microservice architectures, the transactions associated contained an average of 82 different technologies per transaction. This is a far cry from the old days of three-tier architecture or even SOA models. Cloud truly has come of age. There's no denying that cloud provides a dynamic, flexible, cost-effective, and demand-driven architecture. Cloud enables service and services to be spun up and down on demand, whether that be for a production system, a short-lived testing environment, or a business prototyping proof of concept environment. Gone are the days of expensive infrastructure ownership models over 5 years or more. These days, a new server can be fired up in minutes and shut down just as quickly when demand decreases, and you only pay for the time the server is live. That's a revolution in infrastructure delivery. Of course, the next significant development is around containers, and they provide the microservice world with true infrastructure as a service by being a discrete, self-contained server environment in a scalable, repeatable, and wholly software independent manner. Containers can be created, cloned, moved, failed over, and shut down, all based on software-driven decisions. Now your application code and its supporting infrastructure can flex to meet the demand thrown at it, and flex based on that shifting demand. The final component of this digital revolution is DevOps, and provides the methodology and culture shift to help business and IT deal with the microservice and continuous delivery concepts. A strong proponent of DevOps, Amazon cited as the combination of cultural philosophies, practices, and tools that increases an organization's ability to deliver applications and services at high velocity, evolving and improving products at a faster pace than organizations using traditional software development and infrastructure management processes. This speed enables organizations to better serve their customers and compete more effectively in that market. And those 3 dot points on the DevOps slide are so important. In traditional delivery, often failure wasn't recognized until you got into a testing, UAT, or even worse, production environment. So a DevOps mantra is fail early, fail often. The earlier you pick up issues in the software development lifecycle, the less expensive that issue will be. Release quickly. I think I'm quoting here, and maybe incorrectly, but I understand that Amazon themselves deliver hundreds of times a day. And I don't mean to customers, I mean their own application code. Microservice architecture and DevOps methodology enable you to deliver code frequently and keep up to date. The last point is shift left, and this is put as much testing and as much performance management testing as far left in the software development lifecycle as you can. And like issue identification, this saves a lot of time and money, and enables a faster paced continuous delivery. So let's put that all together, and here I'm using an AWS example. The sum of this new world technology means that an application can have thousands and millions of discrete dependencies that your customers traverse every time they use your services. Microservice architectures and containers are exploding in popularity, with the number of containerized applications expected to rise by 80% over the next 2 years. 80%. If you were ever doubtful that microservice architecture and containers are the way to go, doubt no more. So of course, the million-dollar question, how do you monitor this beast of an architecture? Well, think about your customer journey. It starts on a mobile, tablet, desktop device, traverses a wireless network or mobile network onto the internet and into your data center, through your application middleware, and more than likely to a database, and in most cases to numerous third-party resources or services, before working its way back up the path to your customer's device. With such complexity, it's important to monitor this to provide real-time feedback on the performance of all components, their correlation, and the causation of events raised. And you wouldn't think about getting into a car without a dashboard that provides real-time feedback. And that's the same for your customer journeys. This is the sort of information that you, as a business, should have to hand. Now let's introduce these minimum components to enable that end-to-end monitoring of a customer application. Application performance monitoring is key. Most APM suites monitor host resources, the processes running on those hosts, the services exposed by their processes, and the application interaction with the services. They also look at the network performance between those monitored hosts. In addition, they provide end-user monitoring through native mobile and browser monitoring. APM allows you to trace a user action down through application code and onto the host resources to determine how those components are interrelated and how an effect on any one of those elements can have an impact on the others. An APM solution provides information for every part of your business. Instant unit test and release conflict feedback for developers, real-time infrastructure performance, resource utilization, and application load for the infrastructure and DBA teams, comprehensive response times, volumes and error rates of customer interactions to stay on top of customer service management, the ability to extract those critical elements to ensure business goals are being monitored and measured and returning forecast ROI, and utilization feedback to product managers to feed into future development strategies. Now, most APM suites monitor a host resource, the processes running on that host, the service exposed, and the application service interaction with those services. We can see from this graph the areas in which an APM tool monitors. That's anywhere that one of its agents is deployed. The next critical component is flow data. And flow data provides a new way to look at applications and application traffic. Flow data looks deeper into the information being reported by the network interfaces on all devices that the transaction passes through, but allows you to see their connected devices as well. This provides richer information of all the hops before the APM monitored hosts in and out of the infrastructure. Here we can see that flow data is monitored in and out of your business domain. We then have the inter-network monitoring or internet monitoring. And I think it's fair to say that the quote is apt when it comes to what happens in the internet. Although delivery is often guaranteed, you have no real assurance that when you send something out you will get a response back. But there are end-user software toolkits that can report your path through the internet and provide you options to manually or automatically choose the optimal path based on priority and speed. These software toolkits enable you to quickly locate the source of network problems anywhere and respond before they impact your customer service, reputation, or revenue. This is the final piece of the puzzle in which we're able to monitor those elements of the network that are outside our control. So let's put it all together. The above elements of monitoring the application journey, the network and infrastructure it traverses, could be shared among 3, 10, or more collection tools and suites. With each proprietary solution outputs, definitions, and interfaces often use a syntax and aggregation at odds with each other. In order to use this information, we need to provide a collaborative framework and a common metadata language. The benefit of the combination of this information is greater than the sum of the parts. You get more rich and business-related metrics to feed back to each of your areas. You can also quickly pinpoint where problems exist and direct the resolution of those problems to the appropriate party. That's a game changer in terms of being able having to sit in war rooms or having to throw problems over the fence and wait for someone to get back to you. So those slides have set up the architecture, if you like, the environment and framework in which modern mobile customer service delivery exists. I'm now going to step into our use case and talk a little about what we've done. And I'll just let you know that I can't show you, obviously, the customer information, the customer screens, or in fact even identify the customer. But I can tell you about what we've done and the difference it's made to the customer. So a customer is a major financial institution which is currently working its way through its own digital transformation strategy, as most major financial institutions presently are. Intergents were engaged to help them ensure that their mobile solution was monitored to provide real-time feedback into the performance of their customer interactions, the performance of the architected solution, and that solution is providing the business benefit in line with the original business case. The mobile solution has been developed for the most common versions of mobile operating systems, and the middleware is built upon AWS Cloud using Docker and microservice architecture with many third-party security, credit, and payment service calls. Intergents deployed an ABM solution to the mobile code and across the middleware cloud-based microservice infrastructure to monitor the responsiveness of the mobile service calls from not only the customer perspective, but also to observe and report on those calls across the infrastructure and back-end systems. In addition, Intergents have deployed network flow data monitoring to gain broader insight into the network statistics of all internal and external calls. While this monitoring provides invaluable insight into the performance of all components of the network and infrastructure that the mobile application traverses, it also provides real business insight and value into the application use and metrics to measure those business requirements. Further, it enables the segmentation of that data so that specific types of information can be measured and assessed. The installation of these products is not an onerous task, but of course, you need to sit down with the business And more importantly, talk about nomenclature and the naming conventions that you're going to use. Because when you deploy this solution across the client departments, we want a common language where everyone using the dashboards can see what's going on and understand what's going on in terms that mean something to them. So having deployed this solution, what can we see? We can see detailed host information, resource utilization. Being AWS, we can drill down into the underlying AWS infrastructure and see what impact that might be having on our application containers and infrastructure. We can have a look at the throughput of network connectivity between these monitored hosts. We can drill down further into the processes that are run on these hosts, see their technology, what ports they're running on, automatically pick up log file locations that the processes write to, and from that point we can even administer some log-based event detection. Of course, we want to know what resources those processes are using, what types of processes they are, and what happens to those processes, so we can have a look at when a process aborts and restarts, or if a new version has been developed, and then compare the picture before and after that version deployment. We can see the services that are running on those processes, what they're called, what their properties are, again, how much resource utilization is involved, what the throughput of those services is. So now we start to see the performance measure of the interaction with our customers. Again, we can see any service events that might indicate that there's a problem with the code. And we can see all the API calls made by that service. We can see the application. We can see all application interaction, all performance metrics of the application itself, third-party providers, CDN networks, names and response times based on user sessions. We can capture user data if that's the decision of the business, so that we can then segment on some other customer-related information. But by default, we get the user's desktop resolution, their operating system, their browser type and version, the location, and their IP address, which can be masked for security purposes. For our clients' requirements, those sensitive customer-based information is masked, and the APM tool automatically provides an anonymous identifier, so we can still see the customer's journeys, but it takes a little more work to identify who that customer is and to make sure that we're in compliance with the data security policies. Once we put all of this information together, we can see the overall topology. We can see the interactive dependency between hosts, processes, services, applications, and customers. So, out of the box, we have what a lot of businesses desires, which is a CMDB, and shows the relationship between that CMDB and the applications in use. We can see where these hosts are located around the world and in which data centers they're being used. I mentioned we also deployed a mobile APM tool. So we get very rich information from that. We can see all user swipes and clicks with their interaction with the mobile app, including the amount of time it takes to load on the device itself, the response time of all action calls. We can see throughput, response time, and any errors. And all of this mobile information is segmentable by the mobile OS and version, the mobile device, the manufacturer, the screen resolution, the application version that that device is running, And that's an important one, especially if you want to make sure that customers are utilizing the latest features. We can see a count of who is a new user and who is a returning user. We can see where they're located, so we can start to understand our use around the globe. And of course, we get to see any errors and any mobile crashes. Mobiles aren't infallible, and they have often a lot of software on there which has a lot of competition for resource, so applications do crash. And of course, with the network monitoring we put in place, we get a deep inspection of all traffic in and out of the middleware. We can see how that flow is configured, how it's performing, and what components are using what bandwidth. We can perform additional security of network IP and port validation. And we get the inspection of all of the devices within the client network that lead up to that middleware. And on top of that, we can add that into the topology so we have a visual representation of the full path within the customer network that application traffic is traversing. And here's the most important one: the business case and the ROI. Within this information, we can extract customer-related values that are used for business goal measurement. We can segment by customer tier to assist in service level agreements and high-value proactive customer management. And we can provide role-based dashboards across the client so that every department can see just the information they need to see, whether it's back-end development, whether it's in the infrastructure teams, whether it's in support, whether it's in the business operations or in business strategy. So there's a lot of dot points there. Again, my apologies, I couldn't show you the solution installed for privacy reasons, but hopefully you get a picture of what we implemented. That's great. So what has it done? Well, the smart monitoring we've put in place has already paid huge dividends. During non-functional performance and load testing, we identified significant infrastructure and application issues that were caught before production release, and remediation was put in place to ensure that the future architecture was fit for purpose. It's enabled the development team to identify errors during unit testing and be able to fix that as part of the development cycle before it becomes a more costly exercise, either in UAT or, God forbid, in production. When the mobile application crashes, then it provides that mobile device crash data straight to the developers, who are able to get into the code quickly and release a new microservice to fix that problem ASAP. Again, it provides mobile version management. Really important if you're getting issues with people that are on old versions of the application. You can identify who they are and take steps to bring them onto future versions, either through invitation or through forced version deployments. Things go wrong, so it provides process crash and memory dumps to the infrastructure and architect teams to have a look at what might be causing those problems. A really critical point in this is the time savings that this solution provides to the operations team. Through that topology, we get correlation and causation of events, and in most cases, automated root cause analysis. The errors or the events that are generated are correlated. So a ticket goes to support once, not for the 100 events that were raised by monitors throughout the infrastructure. And in most cases, when that problem ticket is raised, it has a root cause analysis attached to it. This saves a lot of investigation and those ever so uncomfortable war rooms where everybody gets thrown in together, and the accumulated time of people trying to solve these problems is a significant cost to the business. And again, for the business, we get this great breakdown of values associated with each transaction. And I just want to throw up an example dashboard on that last point of what we're talking about. So here we have a summary dashboard which provides the business with a very quick view of the state of the service, a quick view of their customers' login, bounces, completions and failures, the transaction values of specific journeys. So what's the value of the functions I'm providing? And then a breakdown of that functional use. So now the business can have a look at how much they've spent on development, how much they've spent on release, and get a real picture if their original vision of what this development might bring into the company is being matched over time. So that's our view into our real-world example. And as mentioned at the start of the webinar, I'd like to jump into Intelligence's Stratium platform. Now, Intelligence created the Stratium platform upon recognizing the complexity of service monitoring. It's the world's first fully integrated visualization platform that gives IT leaders unparalleled insight into the performance of their IT environment. It offers end-to-end transparency from server to customer, empowering CIOs, CDOs, and other heads of departments to isolate risk and issues, enhance IT performance, and optimize the current customer's digital experience. The platform is fully customizable and specifically designed to give you the insight that's most important to you. When we started looking at how we could obtain the big picture view, we knew we had to go back to the underlying tooling that is used extensively within the enterprise today. We needed to understand the technology segments and functional qualities of the data being collected. Intelligence undertook a detailed analysis of the products that reside within the technology segments of the wheel of complexity. The output from that analysis has allowed us to unravel those complexities to form a simplified framework that can scale and grow within any size company. So the framework takes feeds across any component of your service delivery network, provides a full range of application components that enable you to configure, set up events and alarm, monitor performance, provide app control, WAN optimization, and much, much more. We've overcome this wheel of complexity problem by having a solution that is entirely vendor agnostic. We understand the minimum requirements to provide end-to-end monitoring at a functional level, as we've just walked through. And most companies will have some, if not all of that monitoring in place, but have no mechanism to correlate it or provide a complete visualization of each and every customer end-to-end journey. And really, the key to our solution is twofold. Firstly, our HYCU stream integration components integrate with all modern and legacy technologies, from RESTful APIs to file transfer to, God forbid, screen scraping. Secondly, our years of experience have enabled us to build a metadata model that can be adapted to aggregate different technologies, nomenclature, time series, and data depths to ensure that all incoming data can be correlated at summary levels and then contextually drop down into any specialist toolkits where deep data lives. Here we have a senior management dashboard. On the left-hand side of the screen here, we can see the top-level service assurance status. Operational services with RAG status, availability of your enterprise measure with SLAs, KPIs, and correlated upward for all services. Customer experience, what is our customer experience like today? Compliance, PCI Sarbanes-Oxley, etc. Ticket status by severity, by SLA metric, what is in and outside of SLA, mean time to repair status and trend. Underneath, we have a news feed with granular filtering that displays major incident alerting. And to the top right of this, we have a geographical map visualizing the impact of any major incident. Of course, you can mouse over any of those points to get additional information. And lastly, a visual or insight into current major project status with RAG status indication. So we see over on the left here, we have a red alert on the operational services indicator. And of course, if we're in the application, we could drop down in there into an operational view. And this brings me to the end of the webinar. But of course, as Rupert mentioned earlier in the call, if you have any questions and have sent any questions to Rupert, then we can answer those now. So Rupert, do we have any questions?
Thanks, Kyle. Yes, so before we wrap up, let's have a look. We have some questions in. Let's see how many we can cover off. So first question is from John, and it says, we have invested significant amounts in monitoring solutions for individual components like hardware, network, database, etc. Do we have to throw this away and replace it with something else to get this kind of overview?
That's a great question. Thank you, John. The answer is no. The Stratium framework, as mentioned, is a vendor agnostic framework and can pick up feeds from your existing toolkits. And as part of the implementation, we do an analysis of the components that form end-to-end visualization. And of course, if there's a gap, then we could recommend products that can be implemented to plug that gap. But in most cases, we find that businesses have all of the monitoring solutions in place, and it's just a case of we need to plug them together to be able to provide that single pane of glass view. So I'm hoping that answered that question. Yeah. What's the next one?
The next question we've got in from a Paul saying, do the end users have to go into each application to view the relevant information?
Another good question. The answer is yes and no, or should I say no and yes. The Stratium framework provides a single pane of glass summary overview, and any information can be pulled into that summary view. Now, while you can see the summary information, and as part of the installation, we can go to a level that's congruent with the other information we're getting in. For instance, if you wanted to drop right down into network data, then we would have a contextual link in there that would enable you to go into the network data specific application that you already have installed and contextual, so the problem you're looking at, it would open that problem at that level of detail in your own toolkit. Any more for any more?
I think, yes, time for one more, which is from George saying, what software did you deploy for the use case?
Yes, okay. So I can tell you that in this instance, we deployed Dynatrace as our application performance monitoring tool. And then we deployed Gigamon for wire data and AnuView to be able to analyze and correlate that wire data.
Okay, great. I think that's all we're going to have time for today. Thank you to those of you who have sent in questions that we haven't been able to answer. We will obviously get back to you in the next sort of few days with hopefully a nice coherent answer for you. Thank you very much to everybody who's attended. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope you have a good day and catch you on the next webinar. Thank you very much all. Bye.